Thanks for tuning in. You're watching Arirang News. It's 2 p.m. here in Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung, and these are the stories we're following at this hour. The leaders of Korea and Japan had a brief encounter at the funeral of Singapore's first Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, but no major diplomatic breakthrough. Almost a year has passed since BOK Governor Lee Ju-yeol took office. He's been getting mixed reviews, but critics focus on his lack of communication with the market. And another creative economy center has officially opened its doors, this time right outside of Seoul. The new hub is targeted at boosting the nation's IT sector, including the online game market. Now, President Park Geun-hye met briefly with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe at a reception following Lee Kuan Yew's funeral in Singapore. The two only exchanged formal words, though, with Prime Minister Abe thanking President Park for hosting a three-way foreign ministers meeting with China recently. In response, the Korean president said the three countries should commit to carrying out what was discussed or agreed at the talks. Now, amid strained bilateral ties over historical and territorial differences, there's still no word on whether Abe and President Park will sit down for a summit. President Park, in the meantime, also met with Chinese Vice President Lee Kuan-yew. Both expressed hopes for closer coordination on the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank following Korea's announcement last week that it would become a founding member. And shifting back to Lee Kuan Yew's funeral, Singapore and the world bid a final farewell to the city-state's beloved founding father on Sunday. President Park, who had maintained close relations with the former prime minister, attended his funeral along with dozens of other world leaders. Our Choi Yoo-sun reports.
Under a heavy downpour, thousands of Singaporeans packed the streets of the city-state on Sunday to express their love and appreciation for Lee Kuan Yew, who died Monday at the age of 91. From the Parliament House, where the body has been laid since Wednesday, the former Prime Minister's coffin made a final tour of the city, the place of Lee's 6 decades-long political legacy. Dozens of former and current world leaders came to pay their respects at the state funeral. President Park Geun-hye, whose special relationship with the former prime minister dates back to her father's presidency in 1979, was also there. In the condolence book, she wrote that Lee was a monumental leader whose name will remain forever engraved in the pages of world history. Outside the funeral venue, people gathered at tribute sites across Singapore to remember the statesman recognized for transforming the former British outpost to a global trading and financial hub in just a single generation.
He was a great man. Without him, Singapore will not be what it is today.
What he has done is never expressed in words. We really appreciate. That's why we are here to pay tribute to him.
Even those who didn't support Lee's policies on dissent and public order expressed their appreciation for the leader, adding he was like a very strict father.
As I travel around the world and seeing, other countries and comparing to what Singapore has today, we come to realize that what he did was actually for the best for his nation and for his people.
President Park, who returned to Seoul early Monday, has said she hopes to enhance bilateral ties with current Prime Minister Lee Hsien-loong. This as Seoul, with its growth initiatives, seeks to learn from Singapore's rise to a global financial and distribution hub after overcoming similar obstacles like a lack of resources and a complex geopolitical environment. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
The possible deployment of THAAD, a U.S. missile defense system, to the Korean Peninsula has been causing quite the stir in recent weeks. But we may be overlooking a fundamental question, that is, how well does the system work? Here's Arirang's Kim Hyun-bin.
In flight testing, THAAD's hit rate is as impressive as it gets. Tested 10 times between 2007 and 2013. The U.S. missile defense system has a track record of 100% mission success. However, that hasn't stopped some defense experts in the U.S. questioning how reliable it really is. In a report submitted to the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee last week, the Pentagon's Director of Operational Test and Evaluation, Michael Gilmore, said the system has not shown steady progress in its ability to shoot down ballistic missiles in their terminal phase, pointing to examples where the system had some glitches and poor weather conditions during tests. Gilmore stressed that it was important to fix the problems at hand, as THAAD is supposed to be able to work at any time. He also highlighted the need for better training programs for troops who operate and maintain THAAD. The defense official noted that simulators used to train soldiers how to use THAAD are not a completely accurate representation of how the system works in real life, which could lead to errors when intercepting missiles. THAAD has been a hot topic of debate in Korea, as the U.S. has been pushing to deploy the system to South Korea, saying it'll better protect the country against North Korea's ballistic missile threats. Both governments say, however, that the issue has not been formally discussed. But with U.S. Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter scheduled to visit Seoul early next month, watchers speculate THAAD could be on the official agenda. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
And now to the latest on the Germanwings plane investigation. The impact of the crash left not a single body intact, so experts are relying on DNA to identify the passengers and crew. Recovery teams are also looking for the second black box. Our Kwon So has the details.
Forensic teams have made progress in their examination of hundreds of body parts located at the Germanwings crash site in the French Alps and have so far identified the DNA strands of 78 victims. Experts say DNA samples from relatives as well as dental records, fingerprints, and accessories have helped the process. The search for the second black box is still ongoing, shown in this on-site footage recently released by France's Interior Ministry.
The digital flight data recorder, which is made of electronic components and records all the data from the flight, is very important for the rest of the investigation.
Experts say that if the 10-kilogram black box has not been completely pulverized or destroyed in any other way, it will be buried under rubble and debris. A road is being built to give all-terrain vehicles access to the remote site to help the removal of large parts of the plane. It could be completed by Monday night local time. German media has been reporting on the black box recording of the final terrifying minutes of the ill-fated flight. Co-pilot Andreas Lubitz, who is assumed to have purposely crashed the plane, tells Captain Patrick Sontheimer that he can go to the toilet at any time. When the captain does step outside, the sound of Lubitz locking the cockpit door can be heard. Shortly after, there's a bang, and Captain Sontheimer is heard shouting, "For God's sake, open the door," amid the screams of petrified passengers. This as reports surfaced over the weekend that said Lubitz may have not been fit to fly last Tuesday, possibly suffering from a detached retina. They also cited investigators as saying that he was treated by several neurologists and psychiatrists and that a number of prescribed drugs were found at his apartment, suggesting the 27-year-old was a deeply troubled man. Kwon So, Arirang News.
Tough choices still lie ahead for Iran and the six world powers trying to reach a deal before time runs out in less than 48 hours. Tehran and the U.S., China, Russia, the UK, France, and Germany have been locked in talks in Switzerland to reach a deal that would curb Iran's nuclear activities and also roll back crippling economic sanctions. Among the main sticking points is how long Iran would be required to cap its nuclear program. World powers want to progressively remove the uranium enrichment program after the 10-year commitment, while Tehran wants the cap removed completely thereafter. Tuesday is the self-imposed deadline to agree on a framework, while a comprehensive deal is aimed for by June. In the year 2012 for Korea was at its record high.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul.
Shopping market thinks the true meaning of creation shines through. Nearly half of Korea's creative economy centers are now open. The centers aim to help entrepreneurs turn their ideas into businesses, and the latest edition opened in the outskirts of Seoul on this Monday. Officials say the new center will help more local companies branch out overseas. Won Ji-hyun reports.
It comes as no surprise that the Pangyo Techno Valley in Gyeonggi-do Province is now home to Korea's 8th innovation center aimed at ICT convergence. Nearly half of Korea's IT firms are based in Gyeonggi-do Province, and over 70% of Korea's online and mobile game exports come from companies in this region. The area, also known as Korea's Silicon Valley, will become a test bed for Korea's burgeoning IoT, or Internet of Things industry, which is based on the idea that all objects are connected to the Internet. Students in the Pangyo area will be the first to experience a pilot project that monitors youth obesity through wearable devices. The ICT Innovation Center will also act as a financial technology or fintech hub, with its support center offering one-on-one mentoring between startups with business ideas and financial consultants, as well as local banking and credit card companies. Located just south of the capital, the branch will function as a hub for companies aiming for foreign markets through MOUs signed with startup support centers in other countries and Korea's Innovation Center overseas branches. These innovation centers will also help local firms exhibit their products at international fairs abroad, like the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas or the annual Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. The centers offer boost set of funds for up to 5 companies. The government plans to hold an annual Global Investors Fair in the latter half of the year, promoting startups launched through its Creative Economy Drive. Won Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Almost 1 year has passed since Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol took his post last April. Now, he started out strong, receiving a favorable evaluation from the market and political parties. But over the course of his first year, those early good impressions seem to have faded. Our Shin Se-min has a story.
Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol has received some criticism that he could do more to foster communication between financial bodies and the public, and that he has lost the public's trust. That's the exact opposite of what Lee promised to do last year when he took office. A total of 3 rate cuts also affected this assessment. Lee changed his fiscal policy course from maintaining to slashing the interest rate from 2.5 last August to 2.25%. Last month, rate cut to 1.75 came as a surprise, shocking many market watchers. Snowballing household debt is fueling more dissatisfaction with the BOK governor, as well as the country's continuing feeble economic growth. Despite 3 cuts to the key rate since Lee took over, fears of rapid deflation still linger, with this month's Consumer Sentiment Index and the Business Sentiment Index both lower than last March, which was right before he took office. Korea's economic growth rate also fell from 1.1% in the first quarter of last year to 0.3% in the fourth quarter, staying in the 0% range. Some pundits point out, however, that the country's dull economic outlook and its discouraging figures cannot be blamed solely on the governor. External factors such as slow global economic recovery on top of tumbling oil prices have also played a role in the economic slump. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Korean manufacturers are feeling slightly more confident about the economy this month, but they still feel uncertain about future prospects. Bank of Korea's March Business Survey Index for the manufacturing sector went up 3 points to 77 from the February reading. Now, anything below 100 means pessimists outnumber optimists. Low oil prices and the weakening local currency against the greenback are pointed as possible reasons behind the rise, but the reading is still below 100 and the outlook for April dropped 2 points from the previous reading, a reflection of weak economic projections due to sluggish domestic demand. By sector, small and medium firms reported the biggest drop in confidence. A widely expected U.S. rate hike and lower global oil prices are hinting at trouble for emerging economies, including Korea. The nation's outbound shipments to other emerging economies have already been on a decline, and experts say this is likely to continue for some time. Our Kim Min-ji has this report.
Korean exports to emerging economies took a dive in the first 2 months of this year, casting a cloud over the nation's economy. According to Statistics Korea on Monday, Korea's exports to 18 emerging economies came to nearly $37 billion in the January to February period, down 6.2% from the same period a year ago. The decline is 3 times bigger compared to Korea's total exports, which dropped about 2% in the cited period. Emerging economies include China, Russia, and India. The decline is a concern for Korea as emerging markets make up about half of its exports, accounting for 45.1% in 2013. But that figure fell to 43.9% last year. Experts say the fall is linked to a widely expected U.S. Federal Reserve rate hike this year. The rate increase could trigger a rush of capital, which can weaken currencies and hurt stock markets. This, coupled with a sharp decline in global oil prices, has hurt oil-producing nations, some of which are also emerging economies. Korea's exports to these countries fell 4.4% in the first 2 months of 2015 compared to the previous year. Given these global conditions, experts say Korea's export outlook remains unclear, and export growth will likely be in the 1% range, down from 2.3% last year. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
When it comes to brand recognition, world-famous hotel chains may have an edge in Korea, but when it comes to customer preference, local chains appear to have a competitive edge. For this week's Industry Insights, Song Ji-sun looks into the nation's hotel industry and explains what may be behind this.
Korea has its fair share of global luxury hotels. But when it comes to selecting a venue for celebrity weddings or hosting VIPs, it's the local chains that shine. In the latest survey on preferred hotel brands, local chains like Silla and Lotte came out on top over internationally renowned brands.
The service standards set by global brands may not necessarily reflect the unique service expectation and culture of the local users. On the other hand, local brands like Silla and Lotte have spent many years researching the specific needs and preferences of Korean guests and fine-tuning the product to their needs.
Domestic hotel chains also have an advantage when it comes to revamping their facilities. They have a proven revenue stream that's separate from the hospitality side of the business.
Korean hotels may be better known for hosting VIP guests like foreign leaders and providing venues for celebrity weddings. But the big money doesn't come from room rates or from the high-profile functions. Most of the revenue actually comes from their duty-free businesses.
Lotte and Silla dominate the local duty-free market, and they're also expanding overseas to airports in Singapore and Guam. They've also been quick to get a jump on a different segment of the local hotel market. The two domestic chains are building new mid-range and business hotels, catering to visitors seeking budget rooms with quality services. And given that Korea's hotel industry is expanding by the year, especially with the rapid rise in the number of Chinese tourists to Korea, the hotel room supply is expected to fall short of demand, especially in the capital. Experts say these moves to diversify are helping the industry become more resilient, but they also point out that the local chains must prepare for changes in the market, like the recent drop in the number of Japanese tourists to Korea on the back of the weekend. They encourage hotels to devise strategies for attracting visitors from a variety of countries to mitigate the volatility in the industry. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
While Korea, China, and Japan may have many political disagreements, a new exhibit is bringing artists from these countries together for a united approach to art. Our Im Yoon-hee joins us today to tell us more. Good afternoon, Yoon-hee.
Good afternoon. Right. So this is being held at the Seoul Museum of Art, and they're holding a contemporary art exhibition called the Subtle Triangle. Now it features the work of three prominent artists in Asia, one from Korea, one from China, and one from Japan. And so while they have artistic differences, there are also some similarities, and it also offers a look at some of the art history of Asia. Take a look in this next report.
This might look like just another grocery shop, with fully stocked shelves ready for shoppers. There are even customers and staff, but all of this is part of Shanghai Supermarket, an installation art piece by Chinese artist Xu Zhen. He's recreated a life-size market, but all of the boxes, bags and cans are empty, already consumed by the artist.
This isn't about whether we see this as a piece of art or not, but rather that the products are purchased and even taken home. The artist wants the experience to continue outside the gallery.
Drowned in glowing screens, Japanese artist Koizumi Mero creates a video work titled Theater Dreams, where he explores human emotions and our response to historical events.
Living abroad gave me a kind of objective view towards Japan. So after I came back to Japan, I could see Japan more objectively, and that's kind of starting point of what I'm doing now.
For the exhibition, Korean artist Yang Achi unveils his new experimental project, Sea Salt Theater, where he looks at some geographical elements of Asia.
I hope people have a range of experiences here. You're listening to the audio aspect, but you can also experience the sense of touch and even smell.
But there's more to see than these three works of art. The exhibition also offers an examination of art history within Asia, paying close attention to cultural exchanges between the three countries since 1989.
Okay, so this is what you could call a politically charged exhibition, but I must say the artworks are not exactly as what I had expected.
Right, I was a little bit surprised too. No, so none of these artworks actually directly comment on, I guess, the political ties between the three countries, but they wanted to do this. They wanted to bring these three different artists and show that there are similarities. While they came from different areas, they have different practices and different styles, they also showed some similarities when it comes to their art, and so they kind of wanted to hint at sort of a united front when it comes to art.
Okay, and what does the exhibition tell us about the art or the Asian art as a whole?
Right, so all of these are considered leaders of the Asian art world, and what they want to do is they want to sort of negate the commonly Western, I guess, opinion of Asia's art culture, and so they want to reestablish it, redefine a whole new Asian art front. So they want to do that by examining not only art culture and the history of the art here in Asia, but also by using these three prominent art leaders here in Asia.
I want to keep you here and talk a little bit more about the artworks, especially the vibrating peach.
But a little bit interesting,
yes,
right?
Unfortunately, we don't have time for that now. Thanks very much, Yoon-hee, for coming in today and sharing this report with us.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure.
Hello, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. We begin the week with yellow dust blanketing the nation. And currently, the level is at 141 micrograms per cubic meter here in Seoul and Gangwon-do at 156, while Chungcheongbuk-do at 170. Now, Busan is looking fine at the moment. However, there are going to be ups and downs, so make sure to keep an eye on the readings throughout the day. Temperatures are on the warm side today. The nation will be experiencing unseasonably warm conditions during the day, with most of the regions where you see red, which is most parts, hovering up in the 20s, which is roughly 8 to 9 degrees higher than the seasonal average. Now, along with that, we'll be under partly cloudy skies today, and starting tomorrow night, rain is expected to fall nationwide. Now, with that in mind, let's have a look at the readings for today. So it'll be lingering around 20 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern regions such as Gwangju and Busan will top to 24 and 19 degrees. Moving over to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 19, Dokdo hits 17, while Mount Kumgang tops to 11 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's the end of this edition of our newscast. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung in Seoul. We'll be back with more at 4 p.m. Korea time.